Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Forrester's State of Data Security 2014 through 2015. My name is Brian Mullins with Digital Guardian and I'll be your moderator today. Throughout our presentation, I encourage you to type in questions using the questions pane in the lower right panel. Our speakers will be answering your questions right after the presentations. Also, we are recording today's session and we'll be emailing you a link to the recording the next few business days. The agenda for today. So Stephanie from Forrester is going to be the lion's share of the presentation. She'll go for about 25-30 minutes. And Stephanie is going to highlight Forrester's key findings on IT security budget allocations, tech adoption plans for 2015, and the latest security trends. Then we'll have Salo from Digital Guardian give you a 10-minute overview of our company and our solution. And then we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A with Stephanie and Salo. So before I hand it over to Stephanie, a quick introduction. Stephanie Balaouras leads a team of analysts who provide research and services on a range of topics for security and risk professionals. She also provides Forrester's coverage of business continuity, disaster recovery, and backup and recovery. Prior to Forrester, Stephanie was an analyst, technical architect, and consultant with the Yankee Group, EMC, and Accenture. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
Great. Thanks so much for the introduction. So let's go ahead and jump into it. One of the things I want to do before we just dive right into some of the data is just set a little bit of context about why so many companies are moving to more of a data-centric security approach and why it's become so important and why, as you'll see later in the data, companies are spending so much more money on security technologies that you can apply directly to the data itself. So let's do a little context setting first. So one of the things that I often talk about, my background before getting into security, I was in business continuity and disaster recovery and storage. And when I was actually a systems engineer for a storage company about 15 years ago, if you had a client that had a few hundred terabytes of storage, that was considered a very large environment. Today, that's quaint. We have few business processes that aren't completely digital. You think about HR, marketing, sales, e-commerce and your other customer-facing web properties, your R&D, your production. It's all digital. It's all generating huge amounts of information. And then you have businesses actually collecting huge amounts of information on themselves, on their own operations, whether that might be inventory, supply chain, specifics about the delivery and performance of their own products and services. And then they're collecting huge amounts of information about their own customers, their customers' buying preferences, their just preferences overall, their behavior. And suddenly, when you say you have an environment of a few petabytes, nobody's really batting an eye. So we've gone from a few hundred terabytes being a very large environment to now, unless you start mentioning petabytes, you're actually considered average to small